Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the Therapists in the Hot Seat podcast. This is our New Year's mini-sode, so we hope everybody had a really lovely Christmas time and that you're ready for whatever 2025 has in store for you. This is the Therapist in the Hot Seat podcast, so our job is to talk about all things therapy and mental health whilst providing supportive advice in what's hopefully a warm and supportive setting. So I'm Tom Coates, and with me is my colleague Tom Holland-Pearse. I don't know if you want to say hi, Tom.
Hello, I'm Tom Holland-Pearse. Esteemed
Tom.
colleague as well, can I say?
Yes, esteemed colleague of much more importance than I. So, as you are much more important, Tom, how are you? How's everything been for you?
Yeah, it's been great actually. I did some homework from our last session.
Did you?
I did. So
I don't know why I'm so surprised. That's amazing.
So my homework was to really be reflecting on Paul Gilbert's compassion focused therapy model, and I decided to do some self-soothing. And it took the form of, as our viewers or listeners and viewers may tell, I'm actually in my flat. Usually I'd be in my office, and I decided today I could work from home from the comfort of my own home. So after work yesterday, I packed up my bag, got it all ready, woke up this morning, extra hour in bed, whereas usually I would have been so determined to sort of be in the office, be doing this, be like that, and I've taken a much more relaxed approach to this day of work, and it's actually really lovely. Given the busyness of the morning, I feel pretty good about that, pretty calm.
That's great. And are you somebody who can separate that? Can you separate your home setting from feelings around work? Is that something you're able to do?
Yeah, for all my faults, one thing I'm very good at is that delineation. So I can I used to work from my bedroom a lot doing online work, and it just never fazed me, despite the fact I'd often tell clients, you really want to have that, what do you call it? That kind of where you let it all go after decompression time after work. But I was kind of straight out from my bedroom, straight into the living room. It never fazed me. So yeah, I've always for some reason had that ability. I switch off really well from work as well. Like at the weekends, I'm pretty good at just like I sort of forget I'm a therapist, and then Monday comes, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do for a job? Kind of
Yeah,
like,
that's great.
a bit of a red flag there, but
So Friday evening comes along, the Baileys gets cracked open, and that's it. Kebabs ordered.
Yes.
Wow,
So
fantastic.
yeah, how about yourself?
Great.
How have you been?
Yeah, well, look, just for everybody out there who is listening, we are recording this before the new year and actually before Christmas. So one of my homework was actually to have a much more mindful Christmas. So I've been thinking about how to do that, but I'm going to admit I haven't been able to do it yet. But it's something I'm looking forward to, Tom, because every year with Christmas, in the words of Elton John, I step into it and I roll out of it. So I need to think about how can I come out of Christmas without kind of destroying myself and feeling really guilty when it comes to the new year and January rolling around, and all you're seeing is Kellogg's adverts about jeans and not fitting into them and how we need to go to the gym and everything. So yeah, I'm hoping to complete my homework, but I'll give some more feedback on that next time, I think, if that's okay.
Absolutely fine.
Otherwise, I'm all right. I mean, this is the first day in a long time where I've had a relaxed morning. Normally, like you, I'm back to back and quickly changing my hats to become a podcast host with yourself. But today it's been nice and calm. I think sometimes there's a risk then when it's calm that I down tool and just sit on the sofa and watch a place in the sun. So yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of structure with you now. And I've got a few meetings this afternoon as well.
Nice. Sounds good.
So this is our mini-sode. So we know that the new year is for you guys who are listening here right now, but it's on its way for us. And we wanted to really think about some of the challenges around New Year's and also, the ambitions that we have for the new year and the intentions that we have, and to think about how we can do our best within that and maybe approach the new year a little bit differently this time. Our new year is going to be very exciting. As I mentioned in our last episode, we've got a few guests lined up. Tom's got some really interesting meetings on the way as well. So watch this space. We're not going to say too much now, but hopefully there's a few things coming that you might be interested in. So, Tom, 2025 is coming up. I had to check. I thought it was nearly. I was about to repeat 2024, which I don't
Yeah.
think many people want. So 2025 is coming up. Do you have anything big planned for the year? Is anything already in the calendar?
I don't think there's anything in the calendar per se, but I do have some resolutions I've been reflecting on. Um, two really come to mind for me. Um, One of them is, I think, health. I don't know about you. I'm well into my 30s now. We're nearly on the wrong side of 35, and things start to slow down, things start to ache, metabolism has all but vanished and so forth. And I'm really noticing that for the first time. Like, I've been very lucky that I've just sort of glided through life and never really had any health problems and never really had any issue, never had to give it much thought. But as I get older, I just like, if I go for a run, it takes me about 4 days before my legs feel like not bionic. If I I fell off my bike about 2 weeks ago, and I think I actually had whiplash,
Nice.
whereas
Yeah.
a younger, more supple Tom would have just bounced right back up.
Mm,
But now I actually have, I actually sort of feel it. So I had the first message from the universe that I need to start
yeah.
actually considering my health a bit more
I can really
actively.
relate to that, Tom. I was bending down to pick up a tennis ball to throw for my dog the other day, and there was a bit of loose ground under me, and my leg slipped, and I'm pretty sure I got whiplash simply from that. So, so it doesn't take much, right, in order to do that. Yeah. Okay. Good. So focusing a little bit on health, and I think I speak for everybody here from the viewers when we say when we look at you, don't look a day over 31.
Well, that's very, very kind. I feel at least twice that, though.
Okay. Twice that.
In wisdom, of course,
Of
that goes
course.
without saying. Um, I had another resolution, if I could just hog the mic,
Yeah. Please.
which I think is more in line with this podcast, actually. As I think I said it in our first one, but I have always had. I mean, public speaking for me is just that is the final boss of my anxiety. I have done it a few times. I've run the old CBT course when we worked together. I was a best man on one occasion, but I mean, it's just the final boss. And even putting my face and our faces out there in this context is, for me, inherently pretty pretty challenging. So one of my resolutions is, I think there's like I'm going to call it courage or bravery, something like that. And for me, that represents putting myself out there in a way I usually would not, and accepting whatever happens as a result of that relatively openly, being open to whatever's going to come, positive, negative, neutral, but doing it because it's the correct thing, I believe, for myself at the moment, and it helps me to grow, and so forth and so forth. So those are my two main areas, I think: health and that, like, whatever I'd call that, courage, public facing thing.
Great. I'm going to call that a commitment to living boldly, which
Mm,
is a chapter in a book that I'm reading at the moment that I'm really loving. And this idea of commitment to living boldly is it's very easy for us as humans just to live the way we always have and to not take risks and to sit in the back of our cave and be safe as anything. When actually there's so much that can be gleaned and experienced from taking risks. And as we talked about in our last podcast, maybe not everything that our brain tells us is true. Maybe when we put our faces out there, people aren't too critical. Maybe
mm.
people do give us positive feedback sometimes. Maybe things don't go as badly as I thought. So I think it's really important that, to practice that. So that's one of yours is a commitment to living boldly.
Okay, nicely put. That might be another issue I face as I approach 40 in a different manner, he says,
Okay.
touching the back of his head.
Is the hair still there? The hair is still
I
there, is it?
think
No?
so. I'm afraid to check, but that's another problem for
Okay.
another time.
Yeah. I can always thank my family for my hair. It's very thick. Thank goodness. For now, anyway.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned you had some resolutions. I haven't really thought about that yet. I think
Mm,
definitely um, I want to think about my health, and that's again stepping into Christmas and rolling out of it. Thinking I always have every intention of exercising more and eating better and living this kind of 5 a.m. club style lifestyle. When you get up at you got most of your jobs done by 6:30 and you're ready to face the day. But it's never worked out that way. It's always been um, every intention and the best of intention, and maybe it happens for a short period of time, but then before you know it, it's fallen on its bum, and I'm falling into old habits, and it doesn't really take long for that to happen. I've noticed that It's easy just to crack open a beer after a busy day again, or to put off that run because it's raining outside. So that's one of mine, is health. And another one is definitely around soothing. I've kind of noticed I can't keep going at 100 miles an hour forever. It's working for now, but I don't know how long it's going to be working for. And I kind of get this feeling like I'm racing down a motorway at the moment. I'm speeding down and no cameras have flashed me yet, but it's only a matter of time till they do. And so I'm just very mindful of that.
Have you been quite good at sticking to resolutions previously, or do you kind of
No,
lapse?
absolutely not. No. And I think that's, I don't know if you'd agree. I mean, my experience of resolutions is I have the best of intentions and then things just pop up for me that stand in the way of that, whether it's uh, effort, motivation, what else could it be? Time? Lots of different
Yeah.
things stand in the way. What about you? Have you managed any before?
I don't think so. I mean, I still can't speak Spanish and I still don't have abs. So, I mean, lots have fallen to the resolution graveyard
Uh-huh.
for me. But that's probably something we're going to pick up on in this mini-sode, isn't it? Is kind of why resolutions don't work. So,
Mm,
should we
mm.
kind of go through some of the reasons that we kind of,
Sounds good.
yeah,
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
want to kick us off with that?
Sure. So, for me personally, one of the reasons why resolutions really haven't been effective is the open-ended, long-term element of them.
Mm,
This idea that I'm going to do this, and this is my resolution for the whole year, and I'm going to have achieved this by 2026, and I'm going to go into 2026 with a body like Michael Phelps, and that kind of thing. And it's just when you really zoom in on life and think about what life looks like, it's hard to actually implement the change to get you to where you want to be. So for me, one of the main things is the open-ended nature of it, where there's no clear direction as to how I need to do what I want to do, but I want to do it. So it's not that I don't want to do it; I do, but I just don't know how I'm going to do it. Basically, is one of
mm.
mine. What about you? What are some of your?
I find I'm a sucker for the, old habits die hard, and
Mm,
as much as you start January with this fresh mindset and this fresh way of being, and you're really, really trying, it takes, I think, on average, is it 2 to 3 weeks, like a depressingly short amount of time for you to just think, oh, I will just treat myself to my favorite snack, and I will, do X, Y, and Z, and before you know it, by God, February, March time. I mean, the resolutions are just like a distant memory, and you are very much kind of, I suppose, a little bit like how you've always been. So I would attribute that to firstly, probably, yeah, like you said, the open-ended nature of it. For me as well, I find the context I put myself in as well, it can quickly trip you up. I do the same, I live in the same place, I have the same best friends, I do the same sorts of things, and that doesn't really align with, like I said, learning Spanish and having abs, if I'm honest.
yeah, yeah, and I can see you on a beach now. If we do this well, 2026 on a Spanish beach with your abs out, fantastic. But I completely agree. Old habits really do die hard. I saw a stat on this. It can take anywhere from 21 to 66 days to break a habit, depending on how entrenched it is. And that means repetition of a new habit. We have to then repeat our new system repeatedly in order for that to become the entrenched habit. The reason habits became so entrenched and hard to break is because we repeated them so frequently. So if every time the morning break rolled round at work, it was time to go and have a cigarette. If I did that every day for a year, that habit is pretty well entrenched. I'm using that word a lot, sorry guys, but that just shows how hard it can be then to go against these habits and to repeat our new systems. And that's another thing that I think we struggle with when it comes to resolutions, Tom, is maintaining effort over time. It takes a lot of effort to break these habits, and the effort level does drop off over time. It does get easier, but that initial push to want to do it doesn't really fit with the human nature of change. We want change to be quick, and I want to achieve this now. I want to go to the gym for 1 week and have my abs. I want to eat well for the same week and fit into the jeans that I fit into 4 years ago. Right? We as humans, we often look for those immediate, short-term fixes, and actually the long-term nature then of resolutions, when we're thinking of it being quite open-ended, means that we're not getting that motivation and that spark to want to keep going. So in summary, it takes a lot of effort to break these habits, And then if we've got nothing to kind of reward us or to show us that we're making that progress because it's so open-ended, then we're going to just drop it again. And like you said, it doesn't take long to fall into our old ways, does it?
I actually read I've been well a few years ago now, but a really good book on it. It was a guy called David Eagleman, and he said the one way the brain works is it's all about economy. It's trying to economize everything because we grew up in times of scarcity and hardship. So you want to free up as much of your prefrontal cortex as you possibly can, so that you can do the higher up, difficult cognitive processes with relative ease. So what the brain does is it connects these deep neural pathways. He calls them something like the zombie systems, and it means you do things without any conscious awareness whatsoever. And this is where your habits reside. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's having a cigarette, or if it's eating junk food, or if it's whatever it is, this stuff happens without too much conscious processing at all, and that's the nature of a habit. It happens automatically for you. So to try to change that is to try to change something that's so, I'm going to use your word, entrenched. It's like beyond an uphill struggle, and it really, really is hard work. It really an uphill struggle to make any dent in that, and to, get a new pathway, a new neural pathway going.
What makes it harder as well is that when we've been repeating a habit for so long, even if we don't actually follow through with the behavior, so for example, if we don't have the cigarette or if we don't eat the cookie that we always have at a certain time of day,
Yeah.
our brain gets used to the fact that we're going to do it anyway and gives us the sensation of relief or reward before we've even done the behavior. And then if we don't, this is like the habit cycle. If we don't then appease it by then having the cigarette or eating the cookie, it gets really angry at
Mm.
us and, starts kicking off. And that can make it even harder. That's when we get those urges and cravings to sort this out. So it kind of goes against the human desire to be comfortable. It gives us discomfort and says, okay, in order to be comfortable, you have to fall into your old ways. And that makes it very challenging then to have the motivation and perseverance to keep going.
Nice. I didn't know that about the habit cycle. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I've probably not done it justice there, but yeah, it's the idea that over time our brains get so used to the patterns that we're in and the habitual nature of our behavior that it will just preempt it and say, oh, okay, well, if Tom always has a cookie at in the first break of school or at work, then let's give him the dopamine hit before. So I'm already, when I'm going into the cafeteria, feeling a bit, hey, like I'm feeling good. I'm excited for this because my brain's already kind of giving me the dopamine dump, and then the brain wants its payment. It's like, right now, give me what I want. And if we don't do that, then that can be hard. So when we're trying to make changes and say, no, you know what, I'm not going to have that cookie at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Is that early? 11's is
I
11
wouldn't
a.m.
judge you, but
No, I mean, I can't tell you what time I had a hobnob this morning. It was really early. But but the point is that yeah, it then kicks off and the brain is like, please come on, you've got to appease me here. I've done my part of the bargain. Where's yours?
okay.
So this
Hmm.
is really hard, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. And our job, I think, in this minisode is to kind of say, what can we do to try and make this more realistic for change? So Tom, you've got a really good idea on this, haven't you? And a really nice new approach to this that might help put our best feet forward.
I hope so. Yeah. So let me kind of talk you through it. This is what I tend to say in therapy sessions with clients. This is kind of how I roll it. So we introduce this concept of values to our clients. So everyone knows what goals are, and goals aren't inherently bad at all, and nothing of the sort. But we introduce values because with goals, when they're too long and open-ended, like the goals we've been talking about, people have a tendency to almost wait, or they sort of postpone their enjoyment of life until said goal has been achieved. So I'm not going to feel happy until I speak fluent Spanish. I'm not going to be happy until I'm XYZ. And
Sorry
you
to
know,
cut across you, Tom. That's what we call a happiness trap, isn't it? That I'm not going to go swimming until I've lost weight. Well, actually, going swimming could help you lose weight.
absolutely right, exactly. So it's almost like the solution that they've put forward is in fact the very problem that they're stuck with. So goals are not so, I love goals. We'll talk about that in a moment, but they're not. It's not always the best approach, and we often find a value is a far more flexible way of I can't think of a better way of saying it. Not judging yourself, but almost like measuring your success without falling down into that trap too much. And what a value is it's something that you're never going to arrive at a value. Goals, you could, in theory, you could tick them off of a list. I've done this, I've achieved that, I've climbed that mountain, I've done this thing. A value, you'll never attain it. So, for example, it wouldn't be to have abs. I'll stop going on about that in a second. It would be to live healthily. So you're never going to have done that sufficiently. You'll never have done enough living healthily that you can now let yourself off the hook. It's more of a commitment. But that's really useful, despite the fact you can't achieve it, because it means you can adapt your behavior to it in any given moment at will. I can't snap my fingers and have abs, but I can do something that's going to benefit my health right now. And that means I'm not postponing fulfillment and joy and satisfaction in my life until arbitrary point in time. It's something I've got power over right here, right now. And I find that as a far more palatable, accessible, and flexible model if we are going to try and, adapt our behavior and change some of these deeper seated unhealthy habits we may have got ourselves into.
It sounds really interesting, Tom. I'm just wondering if we think about what that would look like. Let's say I was trying to make some changes, and let's say I wanted to go for a jog in an evening, and I kept kind of putting it off, but I really wanted to make the changes. What do I need to do to tap into that kind of thinking in order to apply that to myself?
So what I'd probably, if you were my client, what I'd probably say is, firstly, where's my money? I haven't paid my invoice. And secondly, I'd say,
That's right, I haven't.
I won't hold my breath. And secondly, I'd say, so what is it about running? What does running represent for you? So running is, I would say, a goal. It's something that's observable and achievable. We can tick that off a list. But if you're going to feel bad about yourself until you have run, I think we're going to set ourselves up for sort of maybe too much failure. It's going to, because we're probably not going to run, and then we're going to get into tears and so forth. So I'd say, what is the value that underpins your desire to run? You might tell me, it's being with nature. You might tell me I want some mental space. You might tell me it's my health. None of these things you can't have enough mental space. You can't be with nature enough. You can't be healthy, enough. It's a committed action. So I would say to you, running is one thing you can do in that moment that would get you closer towards your value. If that doesn't feel achievable, say you've got a hip injury or it's absolutely horrible. We had the storm at the weekend, absolutely horrible weather. What else could you do in this moment, though, that would still bring you towards your value, that wouldn't necessarily be something you were going to fail at, for want of a better phrase?
Great. Yeah, thank you. So how can I almost reset that if I've maybe thinking I'd like to go for a jog, but maybe that feels a little bit too challenging? What's going to help me still feel like I'm moving in the direction of what's important to me that I can do with a view to building up to that, perhaps?
Totally, and you can it could be getting out the yoga mat and doing some stretches. It could be just like having a glass of water. It could be taking a screen break. I was having a conversation quite recently with someone, and they said they want to provide for their other half, and I was like, well, that's a nice value. And they said, so I need to earn, they insert ridiculous salary here, and I go, oh well, that's a rare salary to find. Maybe we don't want to put off feeling like we're doing enough for our partner until we've got a six-figure salary.
Yeah.
And then we kind of agreed on, actually, you can just make them a cup of tea and ask them about their day, and that's also providing. And that's something you can do now. It's something you could do right this moment, and it takes all that pressure off, all that imagined pressure off of having to be something that we're just not, or it's just unachievable. You've got so much control in this present moment, and it's about realigning with that, I think.
And the question that popped into my head then is, how would you feel after you've done that? I mean, if you've just thought, actually, maybe I don't have that six-figure salary right now, but I can, treat them to dinner, or I can make them a cup of tea, or I can say, I love you. Those kind of things that then help me feel as if, okay, I'm not exactly where I would like to be in my vision, my futuristic vision, but I am now still operating in a way that's important to me, and where I'm demonstrating this and demonstrating how I want to be and living in line with how I want to be and who I want to be.
Yeah. So that's kind of the line I would usually take in that kind of. Do you have anything to add? I'm just so you know, I'm going to do a little time check, and we're 25 minutes in. So we can add more to there, or we could move on to our next thing, such as barriers that people come up against.
Yeah, I think let's move on. I think we've done a really nice idea there, and I think the only thing I will say is when people are living in that way, when they are making choices in those kind of micro moments, if you will,
Yeah.
to live in line with their values, that's often very motivating, isn't it? People then get those sparks. Where people fall down with New Year's resolution is that they don't get the regular sense of achievement that we get when we do set more realistic and achievable approaches.
Mm.
So I think it's just thinking if we can live in that way, maybe that motivates us to want to keep making the changes and to keep moving in that direction.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, great. So what are some of the barriers, Tom? What have you come up against as barriers to change when you've been trying to make them?
Yeah, I have to go off on a tangent here because it's just such an interesting concept. But this is you won't find this in any textbook. This is very much the ramblings of a madman, i.e., myself. But how I've formulated it with clients sometimes is I say it's almost like we're operating off of we're using an emotional compass, and that is to say, I don't feel like I want to do that today. You called it emotional reasoning, Tom, actually, didn't you, earlier? I don't feel like I want to do that today, so therefore I shouldn't do it. Or doing this podcast is scary, I should cancel, or something like that. And that's a barrier, is that people, they think, oh, my feelings aren't telling me this is the right decision, and therefore I'm gonna avoid that situation, or something of the like. But I would introduce to them, I think, a better model, which is your values compass, which is often going to lead us right in the face of the path of anxiety, and it's going to make us confront difficult feelings like demotivation, lethargy, anxiety. But I'm still going to move towards that regardless of the fact my emotions are telling me otherwise. And the point of that is to sort of almost be the, you take it's a very flexible approach to dealing with emotions on the path to a valued life. And so operating off of a values-based model or compass, I think, can help us to just stay on the right track. So sorry, I've rambled there, but the barrier is difficult emotions which come up, and we've sort of segued into how I would kind of manage that as well.
Yeah. So look, as humans, we often assign far too much power to our emotions, don't we? We think, well, if I'm feeling bad, it's going to be bad. Like if we're feeling nervous before we record, we think it's going to be a terrible episode. And like you say, that's emotional reasoning. That idea of if I feel this, it's going to be the case. And using emotions as measurements is like using chickens to measure things.
Yeah.
So let's say you wanted to measure a football pitch, but all you had was chickens to
About
measure
300
it.
chickens, isn't it?
Well, last time I checked,
More than that.
not sure now. No, but anyway, so you're trying to line these chickens up, and you're lining them up, and you're going along, and there's one chicken, another chicken, another chicken. You turn around to count how many chickens make a football pitch, and they've all run off. That's the thing with emotions, is if I'm using emotions as measurements of things, then it's not really a valid measurement, and they're very hard to control and to contain. And instead, perhaps we should rely on other things and think, okay, I might not feel 100%, but how could I feel if I do this? And if I do choose to, go against my emotions, what could the benefit be? What could I get from this? And is it worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Really? Actually, is this worth the risk? And how am I going to feel after I go for that jog? How am I going to feel after I start applying for that other job, whatever it might be, compared to if I just go along with these emotions? So a really good barrier there, Tom.
How about yourself? What barriers have you faced yourself or with your clients?
I've said it so many times. Time. Just having time, young family, and everything's busy all the time. My wife is our social secretary, and she's like, remember, you've got this. Remember, you need to be home for this. Remember, you've got this. Remember, they're coming down. So just time. And I think it's not an excuse, is it? I should be thinking about what I can do with that. And it's part of my goal for next year is to think about how I carve out more soothing time for me. And soothing doesn't always have to be relaxing, I guess. Soothing can also be living in line with your values. So time is a big one for me. And not planning. I think I always make the best changes when I plan. Like when we decided, Tom, to finally start this podcast, we planned it, didn't we? We've got a calendar where when we're going to record, what we're going to record, what's our topic, who's involved. And the more we plan, the more likely it is to happen. And look, we're already on our 3rd episode. So it's working, right? So time and planning is a big thing for me. Another thing is when I get a hard knock, can be very black and white in my thinking. I think it's linked to my experience of OCD. And when when something doesn't quite go to plan, I can get really annoyed at that and really angry. And that can then push me the other way. So like if I had every intention of eating well, but then the oven's conked out and we end up getting a Chinese. That could just be it for me. I could think, right, well, what's the point? And it can be very black and white. And if we see, living in line with values as like moving and stepping stones in the direction of what's important to me, I can often feel like I'm right back at square one. So I think just trying to remind myself that it's okay to have setbacks, and that setbacks can be really good learning opportunities. It hurts like anything, but it doesn't have to mean I'm exactly where I started. So just thinking about how I can be a bit kinder to myself there, and maybe massage those rules into thinking it's okay to make mistakes sometimes. That's a part of being human. And it doesn't mean that I can't pick myself up and dust myself off and keep moving in that direction.
It's really nice. Yeah. So time, planning, and then dealing with the inevitable
Yeah.
knockbacks that
And
are
they are
always going to
inevitable.
come against. Yeah. I really liked what you were saying earlier about could we segue into your river analogy here? I think that
We
would be
can do. Yeah,
Does
yeah.
that feel appropriate, or maybe the goals? But I felt it would tag really nicely onto
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
were
I can
saying.
quickly talk about it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just one way that I talk about goals with my clients, is to think about imagining that I'm stood on a riverbank and I'm looking over in the distance at a very distant other riverbank, which is my ideal self, where I would really like to be. And in line with what Tom was saying, it's probably quite a distance away. I'm probably not going to get there anytime soon. And it's probably as soon as I get closer, I realize it's further away than I thought and have to keep moving that direction. But I have a choice. I can either stay on this riverbank and think, gosh, this isn't very good. This isn't really where I want to be, but it's easier. I don't really have to worry about crossing this river. Or I can think, okay, what do I need to do in order to start moving towards where I want to be? And to treat sort of short to medium term plans or goals, if you want to use that word, as stepping stones to move me towards where I want to be. So each sort of step is a movement towards my ideal self or my preferred self. And the idea is here with setbacks, Tom, as you say, is that if I take a knock, it can sort of hurt, and I can feel like I'm very wobbly on my stepping stone. But the important thing is that I'm still where I've been able to get to. And I can look behind me and see all the steps that I took to get here. And I can see that I'm not on that riverbank where I started. I just need to think about what happened there. What was it about the next step that didn't go quite so well? Was it that the next stepping stone was a little bit further away? Do I need to put another stepping stone in between in order to help me get to where I want to be there? Or was I being a bit too ambitious and trying to jump ahead? So just thinking about these knocks as yes, very, very painful, but they don't mean that we've undone any of our progress. We've still taken steps to where we're at. And we just need to think about what we can learn from our setbacks and to use them as those opportunities to think, well, okay, I really wanted to eat well, but we were going to that all-you-can-eat buffet. What am I going to do next time when I'm going to an all-you-can-eat buffet to mean that I can still move forward despite the fact that I'm doing that? So maybe I might have my healthy meal before I go and just have some ribs when I'm there or something like that. You see, I've done this before, right? Does that make sense? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I just want to reiterate, because I loved what you said. When you tried to make the leap to the next stepping stone, but it was too big, and you learned from that. So I think firstly, if we were to call that, let's just call it a failure, because I can't think of a better word off the top of my head. Okay, fine, it is a failure, an outcome, but you've got knowledge that you didn't have before, so it's an opportunity for growth in that respect. And then you also said about putting that interim stepping stone in as well. That's brilliant. So you're being really practical about you're learning about yourself in the process of this, and you're being practical about your continued endeavor. I think that's a really good way of looking at that.
Yeah. So setbacks can often mean I'm not back at square one, but maybe I haven't progressed forward. What can I learn from this experience in order to help myself continue my journey? Something that I really need to work on, Tom, because I am this kind of person who could stay on one stepping stone for a long time until I eventually start stepping backwards and going back to my riverbank. And that's what's happened previously with New Year's resolutions. So something that this year I need to really think about, and think about how I learn and move forward with this new knowledge.
Yeah, nice.
So I think this is also just highlighting the importance of making sure that goals are realistic and achievable. There's nothing worse than reaching for a stepping stone and not knowing if you're going to get on it or slide off it and find yourself in the water. So I think just really getting these shorter to medium term achievable steps, which are going to give you a sense of achievement as well. And when you get that sense of achievement, that can be very motivating, and it can push us along in the right direction to say, okay, all right, I'm not exactly where I want to be, but on the couch to 5K, I'm 3 steps in. That's pretty good. I'm not running 5K without stopping yet, but I'm much further along than I was. Now, what's next?
I suppose as well, just to use your analogy, it can be, I suppose, like quite frightening to look over the other side of the river and see this ideal version, and you could be hit with, how could I'm never going to be that guy. I can never put myself in that situation. So just to break it right down, manageable, achievable. What was the third one? Realistic goals, and judging your own success on your ability to do that, rather than like where I'm not yet. What, reasons why I'm not my ideal self just yet. Nice.
Great. So, I'm just conscious of the time, Tom. This is meant to be a mini-sode. We're at 35 minutes.
Basically a full one, isn't it?
Is there anything that you think that we haven't covered that's really important?
Only that you've written here, and I just want to echo it: celebrate progress.
Excellent.
And I do credit you for that, Tom. That wasn't me. I'm just reading your notes.
No, it's yours. Take it away.
I think that's it. It's to celebrate perfection is to never celebrate at all, because we're never really going to be there, or if we are there, it'll be for a tiny little bit of time, and then everything comes crashing down, and you've only got to perfection at the expense of all the other domains that we kind of should have ticking over in our life as well. It isn't about perfection. That's a fool's errand. To celebrate progress, on the other hand, is, as we've sort of said in this episode, is something you could realistically be doing that every day. I mean, that might be overkill, but you know what I mean, is there's going to be progress every single day, even if that progress is just, I failed at that and I've learned something from that. That in itself is progress. So opening up so much opportunity to feel okay about this if we celebrate progress and not perfection.
Absolutely. And I have lots of first-hand experience of this, but also in the NHS, where I worked on a bariatric pathway where people were trying to lose quite a lot of weight before they could go for some form of surgery that was going to really help them and improve their health. They would come to their sessions and they would have lost a lot of weight, maybe like a stone, 2 stone. And the first thing you would say when you highlight that is they would say, yeah, but I've still got a long way to go, haven't I? You think, my gosh, 2 stone, that's 28 pounds. Do you know how heavy a pound of sugar is? And then it's only then people went, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. People are too busy looking at the end game, the Michael Phelps body in 2026, rather than actually the achievement they're making along the way. So when people stop and recognize that, and it's not really human nature, it's something we have to train and practice. But when people stop and recognize that, they go, okay, I'm doing all right, aren't I? And this is motivating.
Love that. Yeah.
So I think we'll leave you with that point, Tom. What do you think?
Yep, I think that's very well said. And actually, when you've said it like that, it just highlights how ludicrous it would be to not be proud of yourself in that moment that you'd lost 2 stone, and to judge yourself on what you haven't yet achieved, despite the massive steps you've made, is just ludicrous.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Again, I said I was going to end, but one last point. It's human nature to think about what I shouldn't be doing rather than what I should, right? So what I haven't done rather than what I have. So taking a moment, like you say, to really reflect on that and think, rather than thinking about what I haven't done yet, what have I done? Can be a really powerful thing with this progress too.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tom, I'm going to start the close and I'll bring you in if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So we hope that this has given you something to think about when it comes to how you might want to approach 2025, and some different thoughts or inspirations perhaps to try and something a little bit differently if previous approaches haven't quite worked out for you. If you have any ideas, by the way, things we haven't talked about, or if this has brought anything up for you, or if you want to be accountable to us, because we love that, or please do drop us a message on social media or leave a message in the comments here, because we can talk about that if you don't mind. We'll say we've had these come in, this is amazing, and we can use that too. So please do, if you want to be accountable to us, we can look at it in 6 months' time, a year's time, and see where people are at with that. Otherwise, just to wish everybody a happy new year. And please remember, every step towards where you want to be is important. It doesn't matter how small it is. Any final points, Tom?
No, all I would say, yeah, I'm just going to echo it again. What are those stepping stones? What are those values? That's a really good resolution to hold yourself to. Is what do I want the direction of this river to be? Where do I want my life to sort of generally end up? Not what am I not, or unrealistic expectations for ourselves at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening. Happy New Year. Stay safe.
Happy New Year.
We'll see you soon. Bye.